So the good news is the sun is out. Just. Bad news is I couldn't find my red kite out, so I've got my reserve beanie on. And the plan today is to head down to my local patch, which is here, which is Pagham Harbour Nature Reserve in West Sussex. And I'm going to try and get a cormorant fishing. I've tried in the past and gotten close, so I reckon it's just going to be a couple of hours of waiting at high tide today. See if it comes close. I might get lucky, and I've seen them catch eels before, so that's what I'm really hoping for, but we'll just have to set up and wait and see. You may remember this from previous videos. Definitely come in handy since I got back. So all the time I'm setting up, I'm just glancing out to see if I can see any sort of movement on the horizon, anything that might come close once I've been here settled a while. See if there's anything that's maybe wanting to come close, and I'm slightly in its way at the moment, anything like that. When you first arrive, you're obviously arriving to a completely undisturbed environment. And in theory, you should leave a completely undisturbed environment as well, but there's always going to be a tiny bit of disturbance when you're setting up. My tripod mount seems to have just fallen apart, which is good. So if you look here, don't know if you'll be able to see, these are the two separate bits that will come out of my tripod. There's a little hole there that it's meant to thread into, but I'm pretty sure that I'm screwed. Anyway, let's see what we can do. I think I solved the problem. Ha 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 ha. Always come prepared. This has basically got a bit inside, you see the metal bolt inside? And it's separated so it's not stuck to the thing that you use to tighten it. Having said that, I don't think my Allen key is small enough. It is worst case scenario. I'm staying calm. Right, plan B. Nope, C we're on now. Ow. 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 That could work. I think we've got a temporary fix. You're going to hold the lens in place. He says cautiously. And I think that for now is rock solid. We're there. Now, this is my view for the next few hours. So update, I was here for about a couple of hours, and then it got extremely cold because there was no sun. And I'm right facing the wind here, so I went over the top out of the way of the wind for about half an hour or so and got some lovely shots. Actually, I got probably the best shot of the day of just a little sparrow amongst some very yellow lichen. Anyway, I'm back here now. The sun's out, still very windy, still very cold. No sign of any cormorants or anything yet, but I'm going to stay here for about another hour. The time is now about 8:30. I arrived here at 5. But in the meantime, at least I've got these swans for company. So I was just thinking about how nothing's been happening, and thinking about heading in, and then peregrine. Don't know if you can see. It won't make for a good photo, so I'm showing you on camera. A peregrine came out of nowhere and dive bombed the seagulls. It was quite exhilarating, but unfortunately due to it being like miles away, and as you saw it flying mainly around the sun, it just wouldn't make for a photo at all. But out of nowhere, the speed was incredible. That's worth going out to see. That was worth going out to see and staying for like 5 hours. But awesome. So, after seeing the peregrine and actually realising that I saw it pass food over, although I didn't get any good photography photos, I've got evidence and I'll show you now. You can see that actually they're passing food between them, which is pretty awesome, really. So, I always try to finish on a high, so I'm calling it a day there. But what I'm going to do is we're going to head back home, and I will show you how I go about editing my photos. Because although I didn't get any really of the cormorant or anything, that one of the sparrow I'm actually quite happy with, and I think it could be quite a nice photo. So I'll show you what I do with it in Lightroom on my computer. So, we're back home. I've got my memory card here. Just going to put it in the computer and see what we got. Right, so I've narrowed down photos from the day. First thing we're going to look at is the peregrine photos. So these aren't really photos that I'm proud of, but it does show that the peregrines were successful and they caught something and handed prey between them actually. So here's just after the passing. It looks like they caught a young starling, and supposedly they nest in the area, so it was really exciting to see. But sadly no decent photos of it, but this is a document, nothing else. So the photo I'm really interested in is this. So this is completely unprocessed at the moment. The reason why I like it is because it's got colour to draw the eye in, and you've got a nice catch light in the eye here. So I'm just going to do a few basic edits. It doesn't really need too much to it. I think we're going to crop it in. I always, when I edit stuff, tend to play with it, to be honest. I don't necessarily go in knowing exactly what I'm going to do. I'm a great believer in try different things and see what it looks like. So that to me is getting close to a crop that I'm happy with. Using the rule of thirds, keeping one to the right, but it's still got plenty of interest in the surrounding image. Plenty of what they call negative space, which is area around it. By the way, the hotkey to do that is L. So you just change L and you can get rid of the screen for you. I'm editing in something called Lightroom. For me, it does everything I need. I've got Photoshop, but I won't be renewing my subscription because I don't use it. You can see I'm cropping quite a lot out of it, but I think sometimes that's necessary, especially in the day and age where you're online all the time. People just are interested in thumbnails more than anything. I think you can get away with a wider crop when you're printing it for a gallery or something like that, or to maybe even for a competition, but 9 times out of 10 people just want to see a nice big clear thumbnail that draws them in. I think that's probably about as close as I'm going to get. I reckon that's alright. So, I'm going to boost the exposure a bit. I'm going to keep an eye on my histogram here. I'm going to make sure that I don't clip the highlights or the shadows. So, by that I mean make it so bright or so dark that there's no detail there. So I'm just going to go up a little bit. It's okay to go a little bit brighter than you think is possible. The histogram here we want really to be just past the midsection, the majority of it. It does vary though depending on the image. So I'm just going to put it up to about there, which seems a little bright, but I'm then going to go down to my blacks here, and I'm going to hold the Alt key, and it will show me when I've clipped it. So if I go there, you see it shows you there when you've clipped it. So if I'm going to go to about there, it gives you a little bit more detail. Okay, so the highlights, it's already quite a bright photo, but if we bring it down a bit, it should take some of the edge off it, because it's quite a nice gentle shot. You don't necessarily want it in your face, so to speak. And I'm going to up the colour up the colour, up the temperature, which is this bar here. And as I do that, it should emphasise the fact that it was early morning and you got some strong light in there. Right. A little bit more clarity just to punch it a little bit. That'll do. And the thing is, the one other thing I was going to do is, because we have this natural line of light here, I'm just going to use the highlight brush and gently cover up where I think could be darker, just to improve on that nice contrast that draws the eye in, because otherwise we've lost a bit during the edit. So if I go all over the bird here, and if you press O, you can see the bit that you've already highlighted. I tend to go messy and clear up the edges afterwards. So if I do that, I have to say it's quite an odd experience editing without music. I've always edited with music, so obviously I can't do that right now. So it's a bit odd. Yeah, so once I've highlighted it, I automatically have it set to -30 just so you can see what you're doing. I might go a little bit darker. And make sure I get rid of that tree as well, because you don't want that to be darker, because that's catching the sun. Push it up a bit actually, I'm just going to move the shadows instead. There we go. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go onto this bit of its head and singularly up the temperature on that to make it a little bit warmer. Really catch your eye when you're looking at it. And another little top tip, maybe doesn't need doing on this one because it's nice and sharp, but if you get your little highlight brush, if you've got this software, just go over the eye, and then we're going to just go up 5 on clarity and up a little bit on the highlights as well, maybe a tiny bit down on the blacks and a tiny bit on the sharpness, and it just really makes the eye pop. Not actually pop, but no, we don't want that. So I go back up here. That is looking like the finished photo. I think I might just adjust the angle a bit, it's a little bit wonky. It's a bit better. Adjust the crop again, like I say, I'm a nightmare for that. I think that's quite a nice photo. And the final thing you may want to do, but this is pretty sharp, so I'm not necessarily going to do that. If you go into detail here, this is where you can change your sharpness, and I usually just put a couple in, just to really give it the best I can. You don't want to over sharpen it. Masking also helps make the background quite soft, so if we do that, it will show all the dark areas of the bits that it's going to make soft, and the white areas it will keep sharp. So just do a tiny bit of that, and then when you hit noise reduction, it will mask that. But again, don't do too much because there's just no need really. Well, for me, looking at that, the underside of the eye is a little bit dark, so I'm just gonna up the underside of the eye a little bit. There you go. That's pretty spot on. I'm quite happy with that. And then just to see whether you've made a difference, before and after. Right. Basically the after one here is just everything's been emphasised. So the one before could look a little dull around the face, a little lacking in contrast. And this one here just really makes it pop. Usually at this stage you find yourself thinking, oh, I could change a little bit here and there. So I think what I might do is just bring the colour temperature down a bit and maybe make the overall brightness up a little bit. That to me is a photo I'm happy with. So now just to put it on all your social media and Instagram and things like that, and we'll see. Cool, so it wasn't a completely wasted trip. It turns out that even though I was going for cormorants, got a nice little photograph that I'm quite happy with. But I will be back looking for cormorants. I will be back. So until next time, thank you for watching.